2024. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Ravitch.
Here.
All in attendance. It's time for approval of the minutes for our meeting of July 25th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve, waiving reading of the same?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Treasurer Zurin.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Ravitch.
Yes.
It's unanimous. On to old business. Any old business to come before the committee? Hearing none, then we have new business with our investment review.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much on this beautiful sunny day. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on the state of the economy, potential impact on the county's investment portfolio, and of course the investment portfolio. So diving right in, when we look at our factors that, whoops, I hit the wrong button. Here we go. Looking at the factors that, of course, drive interest rates, we kind of characterize them. Are they favorable to the environment that we're in today? Are they neutral, or are they unfavorable? So we know that the Federal Reserve did reduce rates by 0.50% earlier this month. Interest rates on the short-term side are still restrictive, and when we say restrictive, meaning that it's continuing to keep economic activity in check. Inflation numbers have continued to show signs of stabilization with expectations that they may continue to drop. Of course, we know now more today that with the port strike and of course with the impact of the Hurricane Helene and the expected demand for rebuilding, that we may see a little bit of a delay in inflation continuing its improvement. Growth of the U.S. economy is expected to slow from where it has been. We've had some pretty strong growth up to this point. The job market has been rather kind of little softening, but clearly not anything to be overly alarmed with. But the softening of the labor market has allowed the Fed to be able to shift their focus from inflation to the labor market because, again, they have a dual mandate of stable prices and full employment. And then lastly, we have seen all of this translate into lower yields across the curve and a bias towards lower yields going forward. When we talk about what the expectations are for those overnight rates here, what is with this? Sorry, I got to set that down. Right now, the overnight rate reflecting the Fed's rate cut is below 5%. This chart is showing the market's expectations of what the Fed will do through the balance of 2025. The chart is comparing the market's expectations, which is the blue line, to what the Federal Reserve has communicated in their what they call their dot plot. And as we can see, the trend is the same. The expectations are lower rates, considerably lower rates by the end of 2025, that we would have overnight rates closer to 3% than where we are, of course, here today and where the expectations are for 2024. So while the trend is the same, though, the market is currently expecting a much faster pace of reduction in rates than what the Fed has communicated. Again, it's all going to boil down to the data. If the labor market stabilizes, if inflation were to pick back up, that could have impacts on the actual changes in interest rates. Inflation being what was the focus previously. We now have CPI at 2.5%. We have the core PCE measure, which is the Fed's preferred measure, at 2.7%. They have a target of 2%. So when we look at that lower graph, we can see that, yes, inflation has come down. This is a year-over-year measure, so this is changing prices from year to year. So the inflation levels have stabilized, and again, the expectations are they will continue to drop slowly. This does not negate the cumulative effect of that inflation that we had starting back in early 2022. We would need to have prices drop. We would need to have inflation below zero in order to reverse that course. Payroll numbers, when we look at the job market, because again, that is now, oh my gosh, that is now what the Fed has shifted their focus to. Top number is job creation, of course, very strong, is coming out of COVID as, the economy reopened, and then relatively uneven, but still positive numbers throughout 2023 and into 2024. That pace, when we look at the orange line, which is the 3-month average, has shown that the job growth has slowed. One component of all of this is the initial claims for unemployment insurance. Of course, this is when people lose their jobs and they have to apply for unemployment. And as we can see, looking at those numbers, those still are relatively tame, we would say, compared to historical, where generally we would start to get concerned if on an average basis we were getting, trend basis, if we were getting closer to 300,000 jobs of folks on unemployment insurance. The impact on the economy, again, this is gross domestic product, so looking at the estimates for economic growth in the U.S. economy, we can see for 2024, the balance, the last 2 quarters, and going into 2025, much slower growth, below 2%. Historically, trend growth has been 3%. So clearly, the impact of the higher interest rates and the like are continuing to flow through and hurt the U.S. economy. Rates have dropped, so we're looking here at rates over the past 20 years. 2-year Treasury is the blue line. Orange line is the 5-year U.S. Treasury rate. Although rates have dropped, we still are at levels that we have not seen since, before the housing crisis. So clearly, we believe this continues to present opportunities to be able to lock in some rates, cash flow permitting, to provide stability of interest income for the county. So moving on to this slide, which is the county's investment portfolio as of the end of September. Of course, the elephant in the room is the cash piece, which is at $303 million. We need to remind ourselves that that currently includes the proceeds from the note and bond issue. That was $115 million. And then additionally included in that was some additional $3.8 million, what we call capitalized interest, to pay debt service in the early years. And then, of course, the cash numbers also include the engineers and utilities component. So when we strip those items out, the cash of the county is a much lower number, but it is a reasonable number that we feel helps to provide that liquidity for the county. And I'll commend Treasurer Zurn on the job he and his team have done in making sure that that cash is allocated into the most highest yielding short-term investment opportunities, those liquid investment opportunities.
And, Mr. President, if I could make a comment at this point.
Yes, Mr. Treasurer.
I wanted to just acknowledge that on 9/25 there was the $118.8 million that was deposited, which is reflected in the cash account for the county. We did have a meeting this morning. We're going to invest it appropriately so the money is available and matured when the money is needed for the bond repayment and the correctional facility. So we're gonna start to invest that accordingly so the money is available. And I just wanted to point that out.
When we look at the securities that we currently have in the investment portfolio, the $278 million, it's currently yielding 3.45%. I believe last quarter we were at 3.19 or thereabouts. Average maturity is a little over 2 years, of course, in view of the upcoming safety service facility project. We've had to shorten up the portfolio a bit, relatively speaking. Fortunately, though, we were able to position the portfolio so that we were able to lock in to higher interest rates out longer term. So as we can see, looking at the graph on the bottom, where we have added the yield to maturity on the securities that mature within each year, we can see beyond 2 years, the county's investments are all yielding in excess of 3.5% or higher. So in view of where interest rates are headed, again, we've positioned the county again, to provide that steady, predictable stream of income. And of course, we are utilizing the investment securities that are permissible under Ohio Revised Code and that do meet the county's investment policy. So that wraps up my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment, just thanking Eileen Stanek and Meter for all their expertise and knowledge with investing the county funds. I do have some statistic that I'd like to share. We do look at treasuries and all the different securities available for investing county funds, and it is hard to move the needle, hard to move the actual investment return because there's so many different securities and the maturity dates. But here's some statistics which I think are pretty telling. So in September of 2022, the portfolio yielded 1.94%, and we were able to move that from 22 to September of 2023, all the way up to 2.67% as the return for the county, and it currently sits at, a year later, in September of 2024, 3.45%. So it's hard to pull up that investment return, but I just want to thank Eileen and Meter for all their knowledge and expertise to get that return so much higher.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
certainly have gratitude to Ms. Stanek as well as the Treasurer's Office for their hard work in managing the county's funds. Any further questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Commissioner?
just curious, Eileen, the Fed drop in the rate, what do you think that's going to do to housing? Is that going to create a bigger issue with low supply?
Yeah, it's kind of there's two sides to that equation. Number one, as we know, housing supply is still rather constrained, limited. And we have a lot of folks who have been sitting on the sidelines, maybe not selling their house because to buy a new house, the mortgage rate is higher. So as rates drop, that will create an incentive or make the math work for folks to sell their homes and then to buy a replacement home. So we would expect that the demand for housing still may remain unbalanced relative to the supply. It's just that it will create an environment where it will be, from a interest rate perspective, favorable for folks to either buy a house or to sell their existing house and buy a new house.
So it'll essentially cause values to probably increase.
That's a hard thing to answer because we know values of late have gone, are very, very strong. And so clearly from a go-forward basis, lower interest rates do allow those values to stay high or grow because, many times the housing decision is made based on the payment. And so a lower interest rate equates generally to a lower payment. But, that being said, again, there could be a limit to that.
Thank you, and thanks for your work with Treasurer Zern.
Thank you.
This is great news for us as a county, so we'll continue to take it as we can get it.
Yeah, and I really want to thank Treasurer Zern and the finance and admin team because I think we have a very good collaborative working relationship that allows us to provide the results to put in place the appropriate plan, investment plan for the county as well.
Very good. So any further questions for Ms. Stanek? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We stand adjourned. We will be rolling into our commissioners' meeting as soon as Commissioner Hammercheck joins us.
Thank you, John.
Call Calling to order the 39th regular meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, please bless our meeting today. May our discussions be fruitful, our decisions wise, and our community strong. Amen. Before public comment, we are going to introduce Judge Fulkowski right after the roll call for a special presentation. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present. The county has sadly suffered a great loss, and no one has felt that loss more deeply than Judge Fulkowski, who has worked personally with Atticus, our courthouse dog. So we would invite the Honorable Judge Fulkowski to say a few words on behalf of one of the county's favorite canines.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Plechnik. It is with great sadness that I announce that the 7 Common Pleas judge's facility dog, Atticus, passed away Wednesday, September 25th. He died of cancer. He was 10 and a half years old, a beautiful yellow Labrador. I have had 3, and he was just a good dog. He came to the judges in 2016. We applied to Canine Companions for Independence, a national organization which has a branch in New Albany, Ohio. We went through a very rigorous application process, which took over 2 years to be approved. We had to go through different steps and stages, and at each step, we were told you were not assured a dog. It was up to the last moment that we received Atticus. The value, he was trained by Canine Companions for Independence for over 2 years. And the value of such a trained dog is estimated at $50,000 to $60,000. Once we were approved, we received Atticus at absolutely no cost to the judges or to the county. Atticus has been with hundreds upon hundreds of children and adults in the general division and with victims' assistance in crimes, most of which, sadly enough, relate to sexual abuse of different types, which I won't go into. The comfort that the children would receive just by holding his leash was immeasurable. Victims' assistants were his greatest champions, and I am grateful to all the fine care they took of him. Atticus spent many hours in the juvenile court's detention center. He worked with the children, and when they reached a certain level, they were able to brush him, play basketball with him, garden with him. He was phenomenal. He attended adoptions in Judge Bartolotta's probate court, and he was in the first pictures of the new family many times. In domestic relations, he was with myself and the other magistrates when we did in-camera interviews of young children. And as I said, he would rest just holding his leash or putting his head on a child's foot. Gave such comfort. You have to see it. You know, words cannot explain it. He was well known around the county. His devoted handler, Colleen Burke, who's an employee of the Domestic Relations Court, would take him around to greet people. He was in this building many times. He has many friends. And it was often said that he was Lake County's MVE, most valuable employee. And he worked for treats. Didn't have to worry about benefits or salaries or anything. To say His calm demeanor and love will be missed by many is a huge understatement. The judges of the Common Pleas Court wish to thank former Magistrate Marie Umholtz, who shepherded our application through this rigorous process. We wish to thank Colleen Burke, who has been his devoted handler, 24/7 care, with guidelines that have to be followed by Canine Companions for Independence. He was their dog, and they had the right to remove him at any time if they felt he was not being properly cared for. And believe me, they kept in touch with us. And we want to thank Canine Companions for Independence for granting us the wonderful privilege of having Atticus work with us for the last 8.5 years. Thank you for allowing me this time, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. The Commissioners have prepared a resolution in honor of Atticus. No words can express the loss to your court, but I do know that no one could have made a bigger difference than Atticus has in the years that he served, and the families that he helped to start, the children that he helped to save, and the work that he did side by side with the judges and the staff as they meet people in the worst moment of their lives and they help to save it. So it's very important to the Commissioners that, Judge, we share this resolution with you so that at his celebration of life, you can also share it with the many people who cared about Atticus and still love and remember him. So if you would come forward, the Commissioners would like to present you with a resolution in honor of Lake County's most valuable employee. With that, we will return to our usually scheduled programming, in particular, public portion. Any member of the public who would like to address the Board of Commissioners, you may approach the mic and you will have 3 minutes after stating your name and address.
Good morning. Gilda Spencer, 5580 Ford Road, Madison, Ohio. I want to talk today a little bit of some of the things that have happened here. In January, we lost 2 of our public comments. We're only allowed 1 now. And at that time, we were told that we were not allowed to ask questions and there would be no answers. And that if we had a question, we could call you gentlemen on your line and you would be happy to answer them. The only issue with that is it's off the record. So then we were also asking about our road and doing things that we weren't allowed to ask, so we quit. And the county engineers were not allowed to come anymore. So, okay, so now we called them, and of course, they have to answer to you if you call them. So then we were here at the last meeting and we had an issue with the one gentleman who got up and was asking questions, and you were concerned about a lawsuit regarding what he was asking about. So my question is, there's a pending lawsuit if something happens to some of us out there. It's 141 households out there, but nobody cared about that. And if that road isn't finished and something happens now, you're facing a lawsuit anyhow. But we had to have an answer to that right away on last week. Nobody said anything before. Our county solicitor talked to you week after week after week and told you you were responsible if something happens out there. But obviously that wasn't a big enough deal compared to the issue last week. So then the other thing that I found very interesting was the 3 gentlemen who get up every week and blow smoke, because that's what it is. What are they going to do when Mr. Hammercheck's gone? That's my question. Of course, we're not allowed to ask questions. I forgot about that. And when they stand up, they're demanding answers. I can't demand an answer from you because you're not going to answer me. You either look at your phone or sigh or just completely ignore me or sit there mute. So I'm not sure how I understand how they can get up and stand and demand an answer and something happens. So those are my issues. And the other thing I wanted to say, Mr. Plasnick, you wanted the gavel, you got the gavel. So please use it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion?
Good morning, Lindsay Wall. I live on Midland Road in Mentor. It has been 1,248 days since May 4th, 2021. 3 years and 5 months since Commissioner Hammercheck's ID card was used multiple times to enter the same room where an attempt to breach our election network data took place. It has been 1,045 days since Commissioner Hammercheck read a statement here during a public meeting where he claimed that he had no knowledge of this happening and shared how vitally important he believed it was to get the facts right and to report accurate information. He also promised to share any information and findings with anyone and everyone. Commissioner Hammercheck, I cannot imagine how exhausting the last 3 years have been for you carrying such a large weight. The relief you must feel after finally sharing the heavy secret you have carried for so long. It took you 1,245 days to finally admit that it was in fact you who used your card. Sir, you are an elected official, a former retired police officer. We have 5 days until early voting starts and only 32 days until Election Day. It is time to give your constituents the answers they deserve. You did not act alone. I am working now with a group of people to circulate a petition in Lake County that demands the transparency and honesty you promised a very long time ago. Whose laptop was used to plug into the county network? The same computer that was proven to be used for a crime in Colorado was the same computer plugged into your data port in your office. Lake County residents deserve to know the truth now, and we are not letting you or anyone else in this building sweep this back under the rug. Commissioner Hammercheck, we demand that you answer these questions. Who was with you, and who brought you the laptop? If you cannot answer these questions at this point after admitting that it was in fact you who swiped your card that night, then you, sir, are a sad excuse for a man and should step down immediately. You have a chance before your time in that seat is up. Do the right thing and be honest. Tell the truth now. I highly recommend that you just tell the people what is going on. Be honest for once with your constituents.
Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else? Commissioner, I want to acknowledge former Lake County Commissioner and former State Representative Ron Young.
Well, good morning. I feel right at home here. It's good to join you this morning. I have some things to say that I'm not comfortable saying, but nonetheless, I think it's important. I just want to sort of remind folks that the job you do is extremely important and challenging. You know, this is your one opportunity. These are precious moments for you to meet and have a public forum, any kind of a forum, in fact. You know, under the sunshine laws in Ohio, you can't even meet together in private and discuss issues. When I was in the General Assembly in Columbus, we met continually. You know, we'd meet at coffee houses, we'd meet at fine restaurants, we'd meet at lousy bars all around Columbus and discuss, you know, multi-billion-dollar issues dealing with the state of Ohio. You folks can't get together and talk about the cost of coffee for the commissioner's office if it's at any public expense, unless there's an announced public meeting. The public is invited. The cameras are rolling, and finally you can have a public discussion about these issues and talk about these issues together and come to conclusions. So this time is critical, and I've heard nothing this morning that I felt was unreasonable. I thought that the comments made were worthy of note. I might question calling Commissioner Hamercheck's authenticity into question, because I've known him for years now. Well, we certainly haven't always agreed, to say the least. In fact, him and I butted heads very, very often. But he never lied to me. I don't view him as a liar. I don't view him as unethical. In spite of all of that, simply because you disagree with someone strongly on issues doesn't make them Satan incarnate. We're allowed to disagree. And the fact we had to disagree in public here rather than at the local coffee house wasn't always easy, but it had to be done. But I think the reality is that none of you are under indictment currently. None of you have federal charges filed against you that I'm aware of. Come clean now if you don't make me a liar, please. There's no federal charges. None of you are convicted felons. So to view you as disreputable, dishonest men is not reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public portion?
Chris Bahari, West Jackson Street, Painesville. I would just like to remind everybody that the people suffering from the Hurricane Helena, that we would not really even know about. They're trapped in the mountains and the hills throughout Kentucky and North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia. And we just want to really appreciate that how people can volunteer and do many things. This is probably a much bigger hurricane than was Katrina. I'm very proud that my son went and worked for 2 months on recuperating people from Katrina. And I just pray that if you have someone or you are available to go and to help and do things, please do so for the country. Let us have a moment of silence for people that are suffering and for their rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Bishop.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's a blessing for me to stand here. Many years ago, I always telling my friends and people that I know and my family members how proud I am with this community. And with the passing of Lady Bishop, to see the community came together in support, that make me feel good. And many of them that came from Florida and even from Switzerland and many parts of the country and the world, they said, we see why you are blessed in this community, to see the people stand, not because of me or Lady Bishop, but that's exactly what I see in every homegoing service when the people have chance, the clergy, the businesses, the city council, and also the commissioners, and all come together. It's that unity. I don't know if anybody knows that I'm also working strongly in Cleveland, and I'm in Cleveland practically for the 35 to 38 years. I go to Cleveland every morning. I have people that drive me there, and come back again here. But there is something different about this community. There is something extremely different. And I'm so grateful, I'm so thankful for the Lake County Sheriff, the police. One time I even had a situation and I called the chief of police, and because one of my drummers was doing it too hard. And the Chief Waterman came and take the stick and start beating and tell my drummer, hey, you don't have to beat it that hard to disturb the neighbors. Here's the way you need to do it. And so the chief really helped us. There is such great unity. And also something that I like, I see the community come together, the people come together. And I believe that's what makes this country so great. That's what makes America so great. It's a blessing. To be in a courtroom, to be in a forum like this, to see with God, all things are possible. That makes me feel good as a bishop. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else?
Good morning, Commissioners. Matthew Heberbrand, 403 Heisley Park Lane. I think it is appropriate for me to address you again, as I've been here for the past couple months asking the same questions. And just because it is public, I want to re-emphasize that I've always presented myself here as someone who is a Republican Party Central Committeeman who is here on behalf of my constituents and my precinct, purposes of that committee, to ask these questions about the May 4th, 2021 attempted hack into our Board of Elections, to give my constituents the encouragement and the knowledge that not only are our elections systems safe, the integrity of them is secure, but that our elected officials are held accountable for their actions, which I promised them as I went door to door to be elected to that seat. So at the most recent Republican Party Executive Committee meeting, we did have a discussion about this. And at that meeting, Commissioner Hamercheck, you did admit that you yourself used your ID badge that night. So that answered the first part of the question of the series of questions I've answered. So that does leave for the public to know the rest of the story. How did that foreign laptop then get into your office that night? Why was it plugged into your ether port? Did you bring that laptop in? Did you allow someone else to bring that laptop in? These are integral issues to be resolved so that people can have confidence not only in our election system but in our political system in general. Because again, you've been elected by my constituents, by this county. Even though you only have a few months left in your term, for those 3 months, you still have to answer for what you did while you were in office. So I do appreciate the answers to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else? Going once? Go, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Marr, 39 Minnewawa Drive, Timberlake. I want to speak about the sexennial revaluation. I know my personal property went up 84%, which is ridiculous. My neighbor went up 112%. Some of these things I just don't understand the justification. We're still waiting on the auditor's office to give me the numbers and how they arrived at valuation. I went to the preliminary hearing, and again, to no avail, nothing was accomplished because I brought comps with me and so forth. He says, well, that's all good, but unless you have an appraisal, we can't do any adjustments, or unless you have some dimensional errors or some other information that we have wrong, we cannot make any corrections on it, so we can't make an adjustment. They said you have to go to the Board of Revisions, which I will be doing. Again, so my property value, I got nowhere with that. But what I don't understand is some questions that I have that I know you gentlemen won't be able to answer, and really no one will be able to answer. It's just probably the state representatives that put all these laws in order. But because of House Bill 920, with this sexennial increase, what we're going to do is we're going to realize an unvoted tax. It's going to be a tax that basically it's an inflationary tax that's going to be put on everybody. The problem is with the 20 mil floor, everyone's valuations right now, Willoughby East Lake School, for example, they're a little bit above the 20 mil floor. Well, once they get the state to look at that, they're going to come in under the 20 mil floor, they'll readjust it, which means then everybody's taxes will then go up accordingly. And again, in my particular instance, 61% of my property tax goes to Willoughby East Lake School District, which I have no problem supporting schools, but here's the problem. We voluntarily voted for these levies to support the schools. And then what they do is they put it on property taxes. Now, if we don't pay our property taxes in 3 years, okay, and I'm not saying Lake County's gonna do it, but basically, we're gonna get, we're gonna have to, get foreclosed on. And again, a person that has their house paid for their whole life, that's supposed to be their investment, they're supposed to want to pass it on to the next generation of family. Can't do that because now they may lose that house if they run into a financial problem for 3 years and then they can't pay the tax. And again, that's all state law that says that if you don't pay the tax, they foreclose on you. And I understand why we have to get penalized for voluntarily voting to support our schools. And they basically said, well, if you don't pay the money that you voluntarily said you're going to help us support, we are going to take your house away from you if you don't pay it. I mean, that is ludicrous. I don't understand that. The other thing is the schools. I mean, when is it ever going to be enough? You know, Willoughby East Lake School has a $100 million budget, okay? Out of that, they use all their money. They never have any extra. They've got over $100 million in bonds that they're going to have come due. Most of them are going to come due in the year 2040 is when the maximum is due. And they keep rolling them over. There's no way feasibly they're going to be able to ever come up and pay those bonds back. And the interest keeps accruing. So we have a major problem. Again, we need to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else for public portion? Mr. Massey. Or maybe I should say Mayor Massey, former mayor of Kirtland.
No, just average citizen, Commissioner. I really wasn't planning on, again, Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. I really wasn't planning on speaking today, but when I hear all these statements made, I've been trying to tell my Christian brothers to turn the other cheek, but that obviously is not, it seems like the commandment, love thy neighbor, is really just a suggestion in our world today. And I'll address Commissioner Hammercheck. I've known you for many years. You are not an evil man. You are forthright with me, and I do not believe anything happened. You were not trying to do anything that was to the detriment of Lake County citizens. That I am completely sure. And if evildoers in our county want to make accusations against you, I say we expose them all of them. And I'm ready, willing, and able to do that. So you may have crossed the Rubicon. The man will be out of office in January, but that's not enough. But I'm saying that, Commissioner Hammercheck, I'm willing to support you because I believe in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Anyone else for public portion?
Brian Kulkowski, Lake County, Leroy Township. I've heard a lot here today. I don't think that questioning Commissioner Hammercheck on an issue that's as important as this is accusing someone of evil doing or anything of the like. The young lady who spoke earlier, I appreciate what she said. I suspect she's with the Lake County Young Democrats, and I'm thankful that the Democrats are looking at this. Mr. Hammercheck publicly promised to provide an explanation almost 3 years ago. And now there's a number of people who want to absolve him of his promises. Mr. Hammercheck, as commissioner, operates on a board and has no individual powers unless that board has given him those powers. As such, any improper use of the Lake County servers would at a minimum raise ethics questions as the improper use of public property. We as Republicans cannot question issues of election integrity unless we are transparent about our own actions in elected office. Again, I asked Mr. Hammercheck, and I thank him for admitting he used his key card that night. But I asked him, when is he going to tell the public honestly of all the details he's aware of related to the incident, and hopefully allow the public to ask questions to you in response. I fear that some of the people who have gotten up here, or at least one of them who has gotten up here and talked today and talked about exposing evildoers, may have been actually involved in some of those actions. So eventually, through public records, we will learn what has happened. And there's a number of public records requests out there. I have a public records request with the Attorney General, and I have a number with the Lake County Prosecutor's Office. Why don't you just save everyone some time by honestly explaining all the details you're aware of? No one's accusing you of anything, but explain the details so that we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public portion? Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Then we will move on to resolutions. Madam Clerk.
In the Utilities Department, resolution transferring cash from Lake County Department of Utilities Project Fund 596, Project 452S, 2021, Trunk Sewer Rehabilitation Phase 2 to the Sewer Fund. The project is complete. Remaining cash and project fund is transferred to the Sewer Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash from Lake County Department of Utilities, Project Fund 596, Project 403S 2017, St. James Relief Sewer to the Sewer Fund. The project is complete. Remaining cash and project fund is transferred to the Sewer Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash from Lake County Department of Utilities, Project Fund 596, Project 462S 2023, Grace Court Sanitary Lining to the Sewer Fund. The project is complete. Remaining cash and project fund is transferred to the Sewer Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash from Lake County Department of Utilities Project Fund 595, Project 414W 2018, Tall Tree Booster Station Improvement to the Water Fund. The project is complete. Remaining cash and project fund is transferred to the Water Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations and cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Project Fund 595, Vine Street Waterline Replacement, Willowick Drive to State Route 91 Project 447W 2021, and the Water Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Lake County Sanitary Engineer to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program and to execute contracts as required for Lakeshore Boulevard Waterline Replacement and Service Transfer, Seabourn to Vine Street, Project 466W, 2023 in the city of Wilwick.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Lake County Sanitary Engineer to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program and to execute contracts as required for River Street Force Main Improvement Project 483S 2024 in the village of Grand River.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution approving plans, specifications, and estimates of cost in the amount of $999,023 for River Street waterline replacement in the city of Willoughby.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Abstain?
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution rejecting the bids received on August 28, 2024 for the Gary L. Crone Water Reclamation Facility Digester Cleaning and Rehabilitation Project 461S 2021.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution certifying unpaid water and sewer sums and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution awarding a bid contract, including base bid and alternate bids 1 and 2, in the amount of $2,600,873 to Shoreline Contractors Incorporated for the new revetment at Bacon Road Water Treatment Facility Improvement, Project 473W 2023.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
And Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving Lake County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant, October 11th, 2024, in the amount of $127,291.72.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $2,242,280.39.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Abstain?
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,165,450.67.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for various non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash and appropriations within various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchner.
Yes. With the conclusion of resolutions, it's time for departmental reports. I see we have no one from utilities, so we'll begin with Job and Family Services.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize K-9 Atticus's service to the county, as Judge Falkowski mentioned earlier. I have personally observed many interactions between Atticus and members of the community, and would reiterate that his calming presence will definitely be missed. Also, I wanted to remind the public that Ohio Means Jobs Lake County has scheduled a manufacturing career fair that will take place on October 29th at the Richard J. Bondi Activity Center in Willowick. If anyone is interested in participating in that, they could contact our team at 440-350-4000. Press option 3. October is Manufacturing Month in Ohio, so we are trying to give folks the opportunity to meet with local manufacturing employers to learn about careers in manufacturing.
Thank you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the Bondi Center was named for Mayor Bondi of Willowick, and Rich took over for him. Like Atticus, he also died of cancer, and the building was named in his memory. Our County Administrator, Jason Boyd.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. A brief update. Joe Busher, our EMA Director, will be here next week to give the results as he has heard from FEMA regarding our Perry plant evaluated exercise, which occurred last Tuesday. I think the little preview will be it's good news. It's really good news. No surprise to me with the dedicated staff that we have from all the elected officials, the sheriff, the commissioners, Randy, Suzanne, etc. So Mr. Busher will be here to present the results of that Perry evaluated exercise. A brief update on the Public Safety Center. As folks drive down Erie Street, it looks a bit different now. The three, what I call the front three parcels, are now, they've been raised. The former OSU Extension Building, 125 East Erie, which was the former home to multiple county offices over the years, and the Burger King are down. Want to reiterate our partnership with the Land Bank and allowing us to gain some funds via the Land Bank, and their project management has taken a lot off my plate, so I thank Mr. Rogers and Linda and CT Consultants, etc. They will wrap around to the corner parcel next, which is the former, there's a former restaurant, barber shop, and apartment dwellings. They'll move over there and then ultimately work their way back towards us. There's a brick 8-unit apartment building, and then a small home that was adjacent to, kind of tucked in by the Burger King drive-through, will be the next sequencing of demolitions. We're still looking at a late October, seeing a construction fence go up around the entire site, with a substantial completion in the spring of 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next Commissioners' meeting is Thursday, October 10th, 10 a.m.
Very good. And legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
But may I ask Mr. Hackman, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to be having a younger colleague sitting in your place for Commissioners' meetings?
Well, that's pretty easy with the makeup of my department. I'm the oldest. So, yeah, that could happen down the road. Not retiring, I don't think.
No. But I believe you are now fully staffed in civil.
We have that additional attorney. Thank you.
Never fully staffed, I suppose, but at least up to historic standards. Well, with that, it's time for old business. Any old business to come before the commission?
Mr. President, if I may.
Mr. Commissioner?
In typical professorial fashion, you chastised me last week for not answering a simple question. A question about who used my access card to this building on May 4th, 2021, the day of the primary election. You chose to double down on the fake news claims thrown at me. I have purposefully not answered that question in this form, as it has been posed by your minion, Assistant Ashtabula County Prosecutor Matthew Heberbrand.
Mr. Hammercheck, I object to the use of the term minion. That is disrespectful.
Point of order, sir. I have the floor.
Point of order. I am the chair, and I run this meeting. Unless a majority overrides me, we are governed by Robert's rules. I object to the use of the term minion, and I would ask you to speak respectfully.
So noted. Prefaced by his unsubstantiated claim that I have been involved in the greatest unsolved crime in the history of Lake County. Your former law student. At Monday's Republican Party meeting, I chose to answer that question when I was asked that question directly by Jan Clare in a very direct fashion. When I do choose to answer a question, I do so honestly. Contrast that with how you have answered a question or questions, such as questions from Mr. Weiss, not anyone's minion, let alone mine. You ignore his questions. Let me frame this in a form where truth really does matter. A court of law. Almost anything can be stated in a commissioners' meeting. Let us address constituent questions about your coursework at Liberty University, where you earned an A in ethics and statesmanship. Coursework that came under significant scrutiny in the Court of Claims, case number 2023-00347PQ last year. Your insurance lawyer, paid by the county's insurance carrier, was successful in getting that matter dismissed. A significant public records request and a court action that this Board of Commissioners was not even made aware of. At least this commissioner was not made aware of. Interestingly, one of those documents that came out in that litigation was this: your campaign press release touting your A in statesmanship.
Mr. Hammercheck, I'm going to ask you, are you simply going to attack your colleague, or do you have a point? Because you've been asked questions by the public, and instead of answering them, it seems that you are intent on attacking me. So I'm posing the question because the commission is busy, we have business to attend to. Are you simply going to attack me personally, or do you have an answer for the public?
Were you completely candid with your insurance counsel?
Mr.
Did you show them this press release?
Mr. Hammercheck.
The one that you put on Lake County Board of Commissioners letterhead? A
Mr.
simple,
Hammercheck.
Factual question.
Mr. Hammercheck, are
Might
you going
that
to
be
answer
an example of your not being forthright?
Mr. Hammercheck,
as a
I will
party
ask you
before a
one
court
more
of
time.
law?
I will ask you one more
Just
time.
curious.
Are you going to answer the public's questions, or are you just going to attack your colleagues?
Just
which
curious.
is prohibited by our rules.
I am addressing constituent concerns, sir. Just curious. I really don't expect you to answer the question. You seem only to lecture others to answer questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. So are you prepared to answer the members of the public who would like to know, given your recent admission, that it was you using the ID card on election night, something I personally heard you state at the Republican Party meeting this Monday? Who were you with? Who plugged in the laptop? And what were you doing?
Commissioner, you seem to be quite energized of late, as I have been over months and almost a year now researching the veracity of constituent concerns, especially as they relate to you. I cannot help but wonder if the actions we've been witnessing over the last several months are merely purely calculated political attacks. I asked you a very simple question from a court of law. Did you share that press release on Lake County Board of Commissioners letterhead with legal counsel that was used or not used in a court of law to obtain a favorable opinion for yourself? That's a very legitimate and very concerning question to a number of constituents. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hammercheck, the only constituent who seems to ask any nasty questions of me is a person for whom you have written not one but 2 letters of recommendation for his son. You've previously denied any relationship to him. It's obvious that is not the case given your line of statements today, but that's fine and fair. You can bring your friends to commissioners' meetings if you choose and use them to attack commissioners or other members of the public. But that does not take away from the fact that you have been asked several questions, and simply attacking other commissioners or throwing up questions of your own does not address the questions you've been given today. So I will ask one more time before we move on, are you prepared to answer the question, who was with you that night Who plugged in that laptop, and what were you trying to do? It's pretty clear from the silence there is no answer.
I'm sorry, sir. I was just collecting my thought, and you might have noticed there was a bit of a disruption from the audience. But I must confess, I did not think that even you would go and attack a child. I am stunned and taken aback.
Mr. Hammercheck, no. I object, no. To say that your colleague attacked a child, to say, no, that is unacceptable, sir. I ruled that out of order.
When a young man
Madam Clerk, let the
asks-
record reflect that the chair has ruled Mr. Hammercheck out of order.
When a young
Let the
man-
record reflect he's been ruled out of order a second time.
When a young man
Let the record
asks-
reflect he's been ruled out of order a third
Mr.
time, and make sure the
President.
minutes reflect that. 3 rulings of out of order.
Mr. President.
Mr. Commissioner,
when a
you do
young
not have
man-
the floor. Mr. Commissioner, you
when
do not
a
have the
young
floor.
man
Mr.
asks
Commissioner,
for a letter of reference.
let the record reflect you've been ruled out of order 4
When
times.
a young man asks for a letter of reference.
Mr. Commissioner, let the record reflect you've been ruled out of order 5 times.
A letter of reference.
Let the
for
record
a
reflect you've been ruled out of
scholastic-
order 6 times.
For a scholastic scholarship.
Let the record reflect you've been ruled out of order 7 times. And
A-
please let it not be 7 times, 77 times, Mr. Commissioner. You do
A
not have the
young-
floor.
a
You,
young
Mr.
man-
Commissioner, have repeatedly denied your connection to the
A young-
circus that you have created at these meetings by bringing in obscene accusations. As I think of the loss of Atticus and the loss of my dog Beamer, Mr. Weiss's accusation that I raped my dog was one of the most painful and disgusting moments I have ever had to endure in public service. And your connection to this fiasco is very troubling. But that's fine. I understand that as an elected official, I have taken on a burden, and that sometimes we have to suffer things that no one else has to suffer. I have been honest and forthright. You, sir, have not. And you need to answer the public's questions or admit that you have some reason, legal or otherwise, why you cannot. And throwing out obscene attacks, accusing people of things they have not done to distract from your issue has to stop, sir. You cannot attack members of the public either. The threats that you levied against Mr. Hebebrand at the previous meeting were despicable, and they put the county at legal risk. Your behavior at these meetings have been beyond concerning. What I have seen you say to staff on camera and off camera creates a hostile work environment, sir. You have put everyone on pins and needles, and while we understand losing an election is hard, it's a cut to pride in a way that very few elected officials deal with well. So I don't expect you to deal with it well, sir. But this is not just your unideal self. This is unacceptable behavior. We have rules that we all are subject to. I was elected the chair to make sure that these meetings are conducted respectfully, and I have given you every benefit of the doubt. But your days of simply levying personal attacks against members of the public or other commissioners unanswered are over, sir. You've been extended every courtesy. Behave, conduct yourself with respect as your office requires from here on out, or you will be ruled out of order, and it will be noted in the minutes. How many times? Because the record must reflect, and we need to give confidence to the public that they can come here and they can ask respectful questions without stating obscene things. That they can ask respectful questions without being retaliated against. Threatening someone's employment or their job or their application because you disagree with them or don't appreciate a question is not acceptable. Dare I say, that is evil. And while we all sin and we all make mistakes, do not do so repeatedly here, sitting next to me, and expect that you will not be challenged. Because I will protect Lake County. I will not allow you to excoriate members of the public or your colleagues unanswered. So please, if you want to answer the questions that have been asked of you today, answer those questions. But do not retort with some attack either on the person asking the question or your colleagues. You will be ruled out of order if you do.
A young man who volunteered for military service is who those reference letters were prepared and presented to at his request. A young man who turned 18 while he was going through basic training and only recently graduated from that basic training. A young man who puts his life at risk in service of this country to protect meetings such as this. A young man who cannot legally buy a cigarette or an alcoholic drink, but yet he can put his life on the line for people like you and myself. A young man who I dare say is more of a man today than you, sir, will ever be.
Let the record reflect I rule Mr. Hammercheck out of order another time for a personal attack. I lose count at this point, but please make sure the minutes reflect the proper tally. Do we have any new business to come before the board?
Mr. President.
Mr. Commissioner.
If I may. We have sat through countless hours at this dais, listening to meetings of conjecture, innuendo, hearsay, directed at us and others. Although we're elected, we have to sit and take it with grace. We can choose how we want to handle that information, but we can refrain from participating at this table. It is my hope we can rise above the fray and conduct ourselves with honor, grace, and dignity. We do not have to agree, but we can disagree with grace. We must focus on the work in front of us, the work of the county, for the people of Lake County. We're getting way off base here. So I hope that we don't turn this into every meeting this way. It's a big disappointment to everybody watching, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any further new business? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session for legal imminent litigation. No business will be conducted after this session.
I'll make the motion.
Second, sir.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Pletcher.
Yes, we stand adjourned.